Welcome to Junkyard Haunts, where we turn trash into haunts. Today we're going to be making another skull. No, just kidding. We are using milk jugs though, and if you've seen my other videos, I usually make skulls out of these. But we're actually going to be making a zombie foot, just to show that we can use milk jugs for anything. This will of course take more than one milk jug because my feet are ginormous. Just like a skull, we just wrap the milk jug around as much of it as we can and use a heat gun and melt it down using a rag to push it down and form it around its shape. Obviously don't use your hand because this is hot melted plastic, so make sure you're using a rag for your safety. And when you're combining the pieces together, just make sure you cut a little extra big piece so that it has lots of room to melt on the plastic to the other plastic part. Also, when you're doing this, since we're using a real shoe to actually form our foot around for our zombie foot, you'll want to make sure it's a slightly better shoe. You just don't want one that's made out of plastic because you'll just melt the plastic, or a cheap shoe that will just melt onto it. You want it a little bit nicer, preferably more cloth-like or rubber or something along those lines, and then it will turn out just fine. And then after it's all done and you got the basic foot shape, you just cut it off and tape it back together. Now for the actual leg, we're going to be doing some paper mache, because I like paper mache. It is very cheap, and here at Junkyard Haunts we make stuff out of trash, so paper mache is basically a necessity when you do that. But for his leg, you just keep rolling up more and more and more newspaper, filling it with the paper mache mixture, which is part water and part flour, and then you have to let it dry out. Make sure it's as long as you want. You can always cut it down shorter. It's a lot harder to add to it. But after I get the leg dried, I glue it onto the foot, and we're gonna put part of his actual leg on. So I just have an old container here that I just cut out holes from and just slide it down there. Slide it down on the bone of our zombie, and that turns out pretty good. And obviously glue that on. Now, like all zombie things, they're a little decrepit, so we're just going to go ahead and cut the shoe down a little bit, so that we can see some of the actual foot hanging out. I cut off his toes and heels. You can definitely cut off different things, but for his heel, to make the actual heel of the zombie, I just paper mache up a little ball of paper and just stick it in there, just kind of form it a little bit like a heel shape, and then I just go ahead and cover up the rest of it in paper mache that wasn't, just to add strength to it is all. To actually make the toes part, again, I'm just going to roll up some newspaper and use some cheap masking tape just to keep it attached. I roll up one piece of sheet for its big toe, and then the same size of sheet, and then bend it in half for its other two toes, so it's definitely thinner. And I just repeat that to get the last set of toes, so we have all 5 toes. And then I add a little nub at the end of it just so it can stick into there and attach better to the actual foot inside. And of course we want to make sure this is strong and sturdy and doesn't come apart, because masking tape will eventually fall apart where paper mache doesn't. So we'll just cover that up with paper mache in there as well, and we just stick that into our hole using more paper mache as basically a glue. Now to actually make a pant leg, like jeans or whatever, I just have an old it's an old pillowcase that I am covering in white glue and just wrapping it around its leg. Really simple, and since it is material, it will look like a pant leg. Weird how that works. So now we're going to make the actual tongue of the zombie foot. I just cut out some of the plastic and paper mache we have and push it down, and get more paper mache just to wrap that up so it looks more like the actual laces part of it. I probably could have just skipped the cutting part. It would have turned out good that way. And we're going to put a base coat on of black because I like a black base coat. It always gets in the crevices and cracks of things that you don't quite paint and cover up, and it works out good, adding just a little bit more detail and a nice primer as well. We're gonna, as you can see my shoe there, we're gonna base the painting off of that shoe color. So I'm just doing another coat of white over that. Not doing more than one coat because I want that black to show through, just to show dirt. Now to make this more paint on the jeans that we have around his leg, I just put like a dark blue on. And after that's done, I actually put in a new thing that I'm doing here is a wash that turns out really well. Basically it's just a watered down black for my particular wash that I'm doing. On his feet, his feet were too bright for me, so I just put the wash straight on and didn't wipe it off. But you can see his pant leg. I wanted his pants to be a little bit brighter, so I put the wash on and then immediately wipe it off. And it just adds a lot to this thing. I really like it, and I'll probably do this more often. And to bring highlights back in, I'm just dry brushing some blue back into the actual pant leg. Now when you do a wash, sometimes it's pretty good to not actually put the color you want. You want to put actually a little bit brighter of colors, because the wash will darken it up. So that's why I'm using such a bright color for the tennis shoe. I probably went a little too bright for it, but that wash does dull out that brightness quite a bit. So to make up for my extra brightness I have when I do the wash, which again is just the black paint mixed with a lot of water, I just don't wipe it off on parts that I want to be dark. See right there, you see me actually wiping it off, and I actually go back in and just re-wash just the blue parts and just don't wipe them off, and only wipe off the white parts just so that it gets a little darker that I wanted. Alright, make sure you subscribe. I make props every Monday, so subscribe to follow along. And toenails, of course. I have done this in my zombie hand. I just take yogurt cups and cut them out in the shape I want and put nicks in them and glue them on. And with the hot glue gun, I glue up around its edges a little bit so it looks more embedded into the actual foot. And then just go ahead and paint them. I'm also working with another YouTube channel using his music as background music, so the link is in the description. Go check out his channel. Thanks for watching that video. Don't forget to hit subscribe to follow along. Also, there's a little bell notification if you want to be kept up to make sure you're notified every time we make something new. Click that. I made a zombie head and a zombie hand, and now I made a zombie foot. I don't think these all connect. I think this foot is proportionally way bigger than the other zombie things, so we won't be putting them together. But let me know in the comments below what zombie thing I should make in the future. Do you guys believe that? Is that real?